disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. So here's former CNN anchor Don Lemon, that's now apparently doing his failing show on X, which is apparently doing worse than he did on CNN. I don't know how that's possible. But he appeared on this podcast to lecture people about freedom of speech, because apparently, in his words, it's not for everybody, according to Don Lemon. And here's what he had to say about it.
I think we have the wrong idea and wrong definition of what freedom of speech is. Freedom of speech is really about the government. It's not about private institutions or private platforms. It's really about government organizations. And so, a platform like X or a platform like Facebook, or whatever, they are mostly owned. It's a private institution. They're not government institutions, I should say.
So he's going to spew the arguments I've heard numerous times, and I've argued with people about this, that, well, freedom of speech only protects people from government censoring out your opinions and ideas. It doesn't protect you from private institutions. Private institutions can legally do what they want. But I would argue on when it comes to social media is that social media is a platform. It's one thing to say when a publication like the New York Times doesn't want to publish something, that is on their direction. But when it comes to X, or Twitter, when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to Facebook, when it comes to a platform that their whole business model is about social media, they have an obligation to its users to credit them, to allow them to express their own opinions and ideas without the measures of a middleman directing and censoring those people. That is part of the principle of freedom of speech. And if Facebook and Google and other platforms don't want to comply with that, then they shouldn't be considered platforms. They'd be considered publishers. But they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have the restrictions like a publisher, but they want to encourage people onto their sites like a platform. And I'd say that's ridiculous. And I say that needs to be clarified. And that's where Trump came in with that litigation to denounce social media tech giants to get the protections of being a publisher, that they had to operate as a platform and allow everybody to express their ideas. But let's carry on with this.
There are rules. There are rules that for you are on what you're on
YouTube.
You're on YouTube.
Spotify.
YouTube has rules. You can't do certain things. You'll get flagged, right? Or you'll get demonetized. Those are the rules. When you work for a certain company, you have rules. We have rules in society. You have to get a driver's license or you can't drive. You got to get car insurance or you're not supposed to drive. There are rules in society, and there should be rules when it comes to platforms as well.
I don't know where his analogies are going. Like, he is comparing it to getting a license to drive. I didn't realize people need licenses to express concerns about things. I didn't realize they need a specific, card to show people, hey, I'm allowed to state an opinion of mine. I'm allowed to recommend a restaurant. Here, I got a card. I'm validated. What does that have to do with it? Those are completely separate things. Completely separate things. And I'm guessing he's trying to make the fact that, well, there's going to be people out there that are going to be like expressing death threats, and we can't allow that to have on a platform. Yes, there's already rules in place for that. There's already rules in place for that. But the reason we have freedom of speech is that it doesn't overpower the other means of censoring people. We already have restrictions and legal rules when it comes to people inflicting violence towards each other or anything like that. We already have that in place way before any of this. But when you're deplatforming someone, when you're trying to kick someone off for posting, or when you have a police raid at someone's house because you posted something on Facebook that's controversial, that's when it gets over the line, and that's where it becomes invasive. That's where censorship runs amok. And you have to protect the principle of free speech, because once you start picking and choosing who you want to censor, they're going to be coming after you. It's going to open the floodgates, and they'll go after anybody of their choosing.
I don't think that there should be we have the wrong definition of what freedom of speech is. It's not the wild, wild west where you can go and, yell fire in a crowded theater or whatever. So I think we need to figure out what that definition is. People need to reassess and read what the actual definition of freedom of speech is. And then you'll have an idea that it's not necessarily meant for.
We need to find the definition of freedom of speech. Okay, pull out your phone and type in the First Amendment. Like there's a good starting point there. You're all on a podcast. You all have fancy phones. You all have assistants and people that work with you. Someone pull out your phone and read the Constitution. That's a good starting point to understand what freedom of speech is. Because clearly they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Well, we gotta figure out what exactly is freedom of speech. Like, because I wanna give some people speech, but not all of it. Blah, 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 blah. No, the First Amendment is a principle. Regardless of who that person is, regardless, they have every single right to express their ideals, their opinions, as much as me or anybody else. That's what makes it a principle. And if you don't protect the principle of free speech, then you're not for free speech. This is what I've been explaining to people for so many times now. And, when you get people that are trying to vilify, for example, Alex Jones, you don't have to agree with Alex Jones, but to restrict him of his First Amendment rights as an American citizen because of a difference in opinion, you are not for free speech then. Because you're supposed to be protecting people that your speech doesn't comply with your speech. That's kind of the point of it. If everyone's on the same board, there wouldn't be a need for freedom of speech. It's protecting the differences. It's protecting people that you disagree with. Even if it's Alex Jones or Ben Shapiro or Jimmy Dore or whoever you find disagreements with. It's protecting the principle of the First Amendment, which Don Lemon has no idea what the hell he's talking about.
Social media.
So how do you feel like social media has changed the definition of freedom of speech?
Because people want to be able to go and insult people. They want to be able to go and spread conspiracy theories. And then they end up with what I call internet brain, where everything is dunking on somebody or proving that you're right by owning someone. How has it changed?
How is that? So he wants to restrict people because, people are going to be mean. They might spread theories, and then they might get something called internet brain. Where it's like dunking on each other and calling people out, and we can't allow that to happen. Again, unless it's actually going against laws and harming people in a specific way that they can actually arrest you for, that there's already laws in place for that, then that's open. That is open. That's the whole point of free speech. And the purpose of free speech, even if it is a conspiracy theory, even if it is something that you believe is falsified, you add more to the speech. You don't restrict that person. You add more. You add more context. You build a discussion towards it. And considering the fact that Don Lemon and people at CNN and MSNBC and the rest of the mainstream media have been posting conspiracy theories and dunking on people, wouldn't they be thrown under the bus for this? Would you throw out your former colleagues for doing the exact same thing? Because that's what they're doing constantly on mainstream media. They're dunking on regular people. They're going after their political opponents. They're spreading conspiracy theories all the time. And when someone calls them out, they complain and be the victim. So, Don Lemon, clearly, no goddamn understanding, no goddamn stance when it comes to freedom of speech whatsoever. That's why he immediately mouthed the, oh, we got to find the definition, so it's going to take a while. No. We have it. It's called the First Amendment, for God's sakes. It's already in place. We've already been practicing it since the formation of America. And we have in Canada, too, called the Charters of Rights and Freedoms of individuals here in Canada. It's already in place.
Freedom of speech, I think it's sort of skewed what we think freedom of speech should be or what it is, and when it's really not that. Go and look at the definition. I would say, do you guys know who Dan Abrams is? He's on ABC, and Dan has a radio show on Sirius, and he owns Abrams Media. His dad is one of the most renowned First Amendment attorneys in the country. He can tell you that we are skewed when it comes to what the definition is and the rules are for freedom of speech. Especially, he's been doing a lot of it, talking about what's happening on college campuses. Is that it's gone beyond freedom of speech by having a comment removed from a platform is not like violating your right to freedom of speech, right? You can still say whatever you want. You can run out on the street and say whatever you want. You can write a letter you can say whatever you want in this society, and you're not going to go to jail for it. But you cannot come in here and yell in a place of business. You couldn't come in here and call someone like you. They would kick you out. They'd say, get out. We don't want your money. People have the right to be able to do that. Platforms have the right to be able to do that. And people have the right to not want to participate on that platform. Advertisers can take their ad dollars away. People can go away in droves, and then your company won't do well. And so I think that, again, we should be more literate about what freedom of speech actually is and what it means.
We need to be more literate about freedom of speech, even though I'm not clearly literate on the subject matter whatsoever. Like, again, all you had to do is take out your phone. Like, tell us then. What is the definition of free speech? What does the First Amendment say? Go on, take your phone out and explain to people what the First Amendment is. But no, we gotta wait and see, because we gotta do cookie cutter corners and I don't, because some people have free speech, but I don't want other people to have free speech. This woman, Ashley St. Clair, points out, he is so insufferable. All these private companies censor on behalf of the government, and the Twitter files showed concrete proof of that. Exactly. That is the game. That is how they're able to do this. And that is why there's more censorship than ever before. Not because these private companies decide to change, but because they were restricted to do so and blackmailed on behest of a powerful government, on behest of the intelligence agencies. Just like USA Today pointed out, back in 2023, the Biden administration courted social media giants to possible free speech violations. So that is problematic. That is something that Don Lemon will never address to it, because that would dismantle his entire argument of saying that, well, we need to recredit the idea of free speech. We need to look at a new definition. No. What we are showing you here is that they are purposely violating free speech. It's not the government doing it themselves, but the government is enacting with big tech companies, with private entities, to advance measures of censorship. So this is how they're able to get away with it, which is indeed a violation of the First Amendment. It's indeed in violation of freedom of speech, because it's government agencies that are telling private companies to do this. That is a violation of First Amendment rights. And people don't see that. They don't see that. They still yell and scream that it's a private company, they'll do whatever they want. A private company that's coerced with the government to install censorship tactics. That is fascism, ladies and gentlemen. That is the era that we are in right now. We are in the 2024 colorful rainbow fascist dictatorship that we're in right now. You just don't see it through the color But we are in that mode. We are in that system when you have government agencies coordinating with big tech companies to dictate what is allowed to be said on a platform, on a social media platform, which goes against the measure of being a social media site. And Don Lemon has no understanding of that. Don Lemon, the only reason he's saying this is because people are dunking on Don Lemon. People are calling him out. People have been calling him out for a long while now. And now he's going on all these different, podcasts to say that we need to rechange what freedom of speech means because people are being mean to me. They're dunking on me. They're trolling me. I'm getting questions and conspiracies are flowing everywhere. I don't know how to control things. And also, why is it a private company or a government or anyone higher up's responsibility for what I'm allowed to see? If I don't want to see it, I don't view it. If I don't like a certain post or anything, I can walk away from it. I can block it. I can report it to that company. In fact, that's what it should be. It should be left to the viewers. It should be left to the users to decide who gets deplatformed and who doesn't. If there's someone that's actually violating, rules and restrictions, then make the user report it. Make the users report it. And if you have enough reports on that person, then you can say, okay, we're going to take away your channel. We're going to take away your account. But what they're doing now is an exact violation of First Amendment rights. It may not look like it because it's not a government official storming your house, but this is how they're able to do it. This is how they're able to bypass so that legally they can restrict your rights without you knowing it. And if Don Lemon had a smidge of any acknowledgement of this, then it would discredit his argument of trying to rebrand freedom of speech. Because freedom of speech doesn't need to be rebranded. It needs to be encouraged. It needs to be brought forward. It needs to be brought to attention. And that's why people are expressing their freedom of speech when it comes to the college protests. That's why they're expressive. That's why all these protests and all these people that are gathering together, they're allowed to exercise those rights because it's their constitutional rights written in law in the formation of America. They don't need to rewrite it. They don't need to redefinition of it. There's already one in place, Don. You just have to understand what it all means and practice the principle of free speech. That means allowing people that you disagree with to have a voice. Because why are they getting less rights than I do? Why is it that another person that you may disagree with have more or less rights than me or somebody else? That's the point. That is the principle. And if you don't have the principle of free speech, then you're not for free speech whatsoever. You start cookie cuttering, choosing who gets silenced and who doesn't, then you're not for free speech whatsoever. It's as simple as that.